It's her special day, Mark. Why are you being so greedy? Those were the words Sarah screamed at me when I found out $25,000 was missing from our joint house fund. Sarah didn't just help her best friend, Tiffany, plan a wedding. She secretly funded the entire thing using our future. She prioritized Tiffany's aesthetic over our roof, thinking I'd just work harder to make it back. I've spent my career in the world of high-stakes data security. My job is to anticipate threats, find the insider who is compromising the system, and neutralize the risk before it bankrupts the client. I deal in logic, encryption, and cold, hard data. But while I was protecting the world's most sensitive servers, I was letting the biggest security threat of my life sleep right next to me. My girlfriend of 4 years, Sarah, was the kind of person who felt everything deeply, especially when it came to her best friend, Tiffany. In their world, boundaries didn't exist. Tiff is my soul sister, Sarah would say. That sisterhood meant Tiffany was over at our house 4 nights a week, eating the groceries I bought, and venting about her lack of funds while wearing designer shoes. The unbelievable part started 6 months ago. We had finally saved up $25,000 for a down payment on our first home in the suburbs of Austin. That money represented 3 years of my overtime, missed holidays, and strictly budgeted living. We were 2 weeks away from closing on a beautiful 3-bedroom house. I went to log into our high-yield savings account to initiate the wire transfer for the earnest money. My heart stopped. The balance wasn't $25,000. It was $4.12. I didn't panic at first. I assumed there was a banking error or a temporary freeze. But when I looked at the transaction history, my blood turned to ice. Over the last 90 days, there had been a series of gift transfers. Each one was for $5,000. Each one went to a private account I didn't recognize. I confronted Sarah the moment she walked through the door. She didn't even look guilty. She looked annoyed that I was bringing it up. "Mark, stop being so dramatic," she said, tossing her keys on the counter. Tiffany was drowning. Her parents couldn't afford the wedding she deserved, and she was going to have to settle for a courthouse ceremony. I couldn't let my best friend's only wedding be a budget affair. I loaned her the money. "She'll pay us back, eventually." Eventually, I stammered. "Sarah, that was our house. We lose the contract in 10 days. You gave away our roof so Tiffany could have a premium open bar and a floral arch. It's her special day." Sarah screamed back. "You're so greedy. You make 6 figures. You can just work more overtime. Tiffany only gets married once. Why do you hate her so much?" That was the moment the switch flipped in my head. I realized Sarah didn't see me as a partner. She saw me as a specialized tool, a machine that produced money for her and Tiffany to play with. Before we conclude this project, kindly subscribe to this channel. It would go a long way by helping us reach a wider audience, thank you. But the betrayal went deeper. I started digging. As a security expert, I have ways of finding things. I found out that Sarah hadn't just loaned the $25,000 for the wedding. She had also used my business credit card, the one I used for travel expenses, to book a $15,000 honeymoon for Tiffany and her new husband at an ultra-luxury resort in the Maldives. She had put the gift in her own name to look like the hero, but the billing address was my office. She thought I wouldn't notice until the statement came at the end of the month. She thought that by the time I found out, they'd already be back, and I'd be too nice to cause a scene. She was wrong. I spent the next week playing the role of the forgiving husband-to-be. I told her I was hurt, but that I understood the value of friendship. I even attended the wedding. I watched Tiffany walk down the aisle in a dress that cost more than my first car, a dress I paid for. I watched them toast with champagne I paid for. I even smiled when Tiffany hugged me and whispered, "Thanks for being such a great sport, Mark." I wasn't a great sport. I was a hunter. I waited. I waited until the wedding was over. I waited until Tiffany and her husband boarded their first-class flight to the Maldives. I waited until I saw Sarah's Instagram story of her at the airport, waving them off with tears in her eyes, so happy I could give my bestie the world. Hashtag best friend goals, hashtag generosity. The second their flight took off, I went to work. I didn't just cancel the credit cards. I called the fraud department of my bank and reported every single transfer from the house fund as unauthorized and domestic financial abuse. I provided the text where Sarah admitted she took the money without my consent. Then, I called the resort in the Maldives. I told them that the reservation booked under my corporate card was fraudulent. I told them the guests arriving were not authorized to use the account. I didn't cancel the room. I just removed the payment method. They were flying into a tropical paradise with zero way to pay for it. $10,000 in wedding debt waiting for them at home, and a best friend whose only source of income, me, had just vanished in a thin air. I packed Sarah's things and left them in a storage unit. I changed the locks, and then I sat down with a glass of scotch and waited for the first emergency phone call to come from 8,000 miles away. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but in my case, it was served at a balmy 85 degrees on a private island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. I spent the first 6 hours after Tiffany and her new husband, Justin, took off in a state of clinical efficiency. As a security specialist, I knew that timing was everything. If I cut the cards too early, they'd be stuck at the airport in Austin, and the scene would happen in my driveway. I didn't want a scene. I wanted a total system failure. I waited until their flight hit the halfway point over the Atlantic, the point of no return. That's when I called my bank's high-level fraud division. I didn't just report the $15,000 honeymoon as fraudulent. I flagged the entire history of Sarah's gift transfers. I told them my fiancé had gained unauthorized access to my secondary business tokens. By the time I hung up, every piece of plastic Sarah had in her purse was a useless piece of decorative shrapnel. Then came the call to the Sunny resort in the Maldives. "Hello," I said, my voice as calm as if I were ordering a pizza. "I'm the primary account holder for the corporate card, ending in 4092. I'm calling to notify you that the reservation for Tiffany and Justin Smith was made without authorization. I will not be responsible for the $15,000 villa, the seaplane transfers, or the incidental deposits." The concierge sounded panicked. "Sir, they are arriving in 4 hours. The seaplane is already fueled." "That's a shame," I replied. "I suggest you ask them for a different card upon arrival. Good luck." Before we conclude this project, kindly subscribe to this channel. It would go a long way by helping us reach a wider audience, thank you. While Tiffany was sipping complimentary champagne in the sky, Sarah was at home, completely oblivious. She was lounging on the sofa, scrolling through the wedding photos on her phone, probably planning which ones to post to make her bestie look the most expensive. I walked into the living room and sat across from her. I didn't yell. I didn't mention the $25,000. I just watched her. "They should be landing soon," Sarah said, smiling at me like I was her favorite item. "I'm so glad we did this, Mark. Seeing Tiff that happy, it makes the loan worth it, right?" "It's definitely going to be a trip they never forget, Sarah," I said. An hour later, her phone vibrated. Then it vibrated again, and again. It was a flurry of frantic texts from Tiffany. "Sarah, the card for the seaplane transfer just declined. They're saying there's a fraud alert. Check with Mark. We're stuck at the dock." Sarah frowned, her thumbs flying across the screen. "Mark, did you lock the business card? Tiffany says it's not working at the airport." "I didn't lock it," I said, leaning back. "I reported it stolen. Because it was, along with the $25,000 from our house fund." The color drained from Sarah's face so fast, it was like watching a ghost materialize. "What?" "Mark, we talked about this. It was a loan. You're going to embarrass her in front of her new husband? Fix it. Call the bank and tell them it was a mistake." "No," I said, "and you should probably check your own accounts, too." Sarah scrambled to open her banking app. When she saw the account frozen banner across her screen, she let out a scream that probably echoed through the neighborhood. "You frozen my money too? That's my paycheck. How am I supposed to eat? How am I supposed to pay my car note?" "The same way Tiffany is going to pay for that $15,000 villa," I said, "by finding a soul sister to bail you out." "Oh wait, you're the only one with the generosity, remember?" Just then my phone rang. It was an international number. I put on speaker. "Mark, it was Tiffany." She wasn't whispering anymore. She was hysterical. In the background, I could hear the sound of tropical birds and a very firm-voiced Maldivian man. "The resort is saying our reservation is invalid. They're demanding a $5,000 deposit just to let us board the boat to the island. Justin is freaking out. He's blaming me. Put the money back on the card now." "Hi, Tiffany," I said. "Nice wedding, by the way. The floral arch was beautiful. It's a shame it cost me my down payment. As for the money, I don't have it. Sarah gave it all to you. So, technically, You're the one who's rich. Why don't you use some of that loan money to pay for your room? Mark, stop it. Sarah lunged for the phone, but I swiped it away. Tiffany, I continued, I filed a police report for the $25,000. If you don't wire that money back to my account within 48 hours, the next person you'll be talking to isn't a concierge. It'll be a detective. Enjoy the beach. I hung up. Sarah was sobbing now, calling me a monster and a financial abuser. She told me that I had ruined the most important week of her best friend's life. You didn't just ruin a vacation, Mark. You ruined a marriage. Justin didn't know about the loan. He thought Tiffany's family paid for it. You've made her look like a liar. She's a liar, Sarah, I said, standing up. And so are you. You have 2 hours to pack a bag. The storage unit key is on the counter. The lease is in my name, and I've already served the eviction notice to the building manager. Sarah looked at me, her eyes red and wide with disbelief. You're kicking me out? Over money? We're engaged. I took the engagement ring off the counter, the one I've been planning to upgrade, and put in my pocket. We were engaged. Now, where's the clothes file? I'll see you in court for the $25,000. I walked out of the house, leaving her in the middle of a pile of Tiffany's wedding favors and empty promises. But as I drove away, I knew this wasn't the end. Tiffany and Justin were still in the Maldives. Sarah was officially homeless, and the $25,000 was still missing. The real war was just beginning, and I was about to find out exactly how far a bestie would go when the money finally ran out. The silence in my new, empty apartment was the most expensive thing I had ever bought, and it was worth every penny. For the first 48 hours after Sarah left, my phone was a war zone. I had hundreds of missed calls from Sarah, Tiffany's mother, and even Justin's best man. Apparently, I was the villain of the year in their social circle. But in the world of data forensics, noise is just a distraction from the signal. And the signal was clear. They were desperate. On the third day, the Bestie bond finally hit its first major stress test. I received a frantic email from Justin, Tiffany's new husband. He had somehow managed to get a local SIM card in the Maldives. He wasn't calling to threaten me. He was calling to beg. Mark, please. I didn't know. Tiffany told me her parents had a secret savings account for her wedding. I had no idea she was taking money from you and Sarah. The resort held our passports. They wouldn't let us leave the lobby until we paid for the seaplane and the first night. I had to use my entire emergency savings just to get us to a budget hotel on a different island. We're stranded. Please, just help us get home, and I'll make sure she pays you back. I felt a slight pang of sympathy for Justin, but then I remembered the photo of him on the floral arch I paid for, smiling while my house deposit burned. I replied with one sentence. The police report has been filed. Give the detectives your statement when you land, and maybe the DA will be lenient. Before we conclude this project, kindly subscribe to this channel. It would go a long way by helping us reach a wider audience. Thank you. Back in Austin, Sarah was living out of her car in Tiffany's parents' guest room. She had gone from hero bestie to social outcast in record time. But the real drama started when the subpoenas were served. I didn't just sue Sarah. Because the money had been transferred into Tiffany's account, and because Tiffany had spent it knowing it was borrowed from a joint fund she had no right to, my lawyer named Tiffany as a co-defendant in a civil suit for conversion and unjust enrichment. That's when the sisters for life started clawing at each other's throats. I found out through a mutual friend that the moment Tiffany landed back in the States, exhausted, broke, and facing a massive legal bill, she didn't hug Sarah. She screamed at her. Tiffany blamed Sarah for tricking her into taking the money. She claimed she didn't know it was the house fund. She told everyone that Sarah had forced the money on her to act like a big shot. Sarah, who had literally ruined her own life and lost her fiancé to give Tiffany her dream, was suddenly the scapegoat. I did it for you. Sarah had screamed at Tiffany in a coffee shop downtown, according to our mutual friend. I lost Mark for you. I'm homeless for you. I never asked you to steal. Tiffany had shot back. You've ruined my honeymoon. Justin is talking about an annulment because of the debt you put us in. You're toxic, Sarah. The betrayal was beautiful in its irony. Sarah had prioritized Tiffany over everything, and the second the bestie tax became too high to pay, Tiffany threw her to the wolves to save her own skin. But I wasn't done. I knew Sarah was hiding something else. During my final audit of our shared cloud storage, I found a folder Sarah thought she had deleted. It wasn't just about the $25,000. It was a series of spreadsheets Sarah and Tiffany had created together months ago. They hadn't just borrowed the money. They had planned a repayment schedule that involved Sarah slowly siphoning money from my business accounts over the next 5 years to cover Tiffany's credit card debts, hoping I'd be too distracted by the new house to notice $500 a month disappearing. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a long-term parasitic plan. I took those spreadsheets directly to the district attorney. This wasn't just a civil dispute anymore. This was conspiracy to commit grand theft. I sat in my lawyer's office as he looked over the documents. "Mark," he said, shaking his head. "They didn't just take your money. They were planning to live off you like a trust fund. If we play this right, they aren't just going to owe you $25,000. They're going to be looking at a felony record." Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. It was the first time she hadn't used an angry tone. "Mark, please. Tiffany is threatening to testify against me. She's telling the police it was all my idea. She's turning everyone against me. Please. I have nothing left. Can we just talk? I'll do anything." I looked at the text, then at the evidence of their 5-year plan to bleed me dry. I didn't reply. I just sent the screenshot of her text to the DA's office. The besties were about to find out that when you build a friendship on someone else's stolen dreams, the whole thing collapses the moment the bill comes due. But the biggest shock was still to come, because Tiffany had one last secret that was about to blow the entire case wide open. The final hammer was about to fall. As a data security expert, I knew that most criminals aren't caught because they're stupid. They're caught because they're greedy. Tiffany and Sarah had spent months treating my bank account like a fountain, and they truly believed the water would never run out. The ultimate plot twist came during the pre-trial deposition. My lawyer had called Tiffany in to testify under oath. She showed up looking like a shell of the woman who had walked down that $25,000 floral aisle. Her dream husband, Justin, was sitting in the back of the room with his own lawyer. He was already filing for an annulment based on fraud. Tiffany tried to stick to her story. Sarah gave me the money. I thought it was hers. I'm a victim here. That's when my lawyer pulled out the nuclear option. We had recovered a series of deleted voice notes from Sarah's old phone that had been backed up to the cloud. In the recording, dated 3 weeks before the wedding, Tiffany's voice was crystal clear. "Tiff, Mark is starting to ask about the house fund balance. We need to move the rest of the $25,000 now, before he locks the account. Once the wedding is over and we're in the Maldives, he'll be too embarrassed to sue his own wife. Just get the money, Sarah. He's a geek. He'll just work a few more weekends and make it back. He owes us for how much we've put up with his boring work trips." The room went dead silent. Tiffany turned a shade of gray I didn't know was humanly possible. Sarah, sitting across from her, burst into tears. The Soul Sisters weren't just thieves. They were predators who viewed my hard work as something I owed them for the privilege of their company. Before we conclude this project, kindly subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us bring more of these incredible stories of justice and truth to light. Don't let the besties win. Join our community today. The legal fallout was brutal and swift. Seeing the evidence of premeditated conspiracy, the district attorney gave them a choice: full restitution within 30 days or a recommended 5-year prison sentence for grand larceny and felony fraud. Tiffany's parents, terrified of their daughter going to prison, were forced to take out a second mortgage on their home to pay me back the $25,000. But I didn't stop there. I pushed for the $15,000 in credit card fraud from the Maldives Trap and an additional $10,000 in legal fees. In total, I walked away with a check for $50,000. Sarah tried one last time crawlback. She waited for me outside my office a week after the settlement was signed. She looked haggard. She had lost her job, her best friend had blocked her on everything, and her family had essentially disowned her for the shame she brought on them. "Mark," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I paid you back. Everything is settled. Can we just try to talk?" I was brainwashed by Tiffany. She manipulated me. "I still love you." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt nothing. She was a corrupted file that had been successfully deleted. "The settlement is for the money, Sarah," I said, adjusting my laptop bag. "But there's no refund for the 3 years I wasted on you. Use whatever is left of your life to find a new priority. Because as far as I'm concerned, you're just a 404 error." I walked past her and didn't look back. Today, I live in that 3-bedroom house I wanted. I bought on my own. There are no bestie emergencies, no disappearing funds, and no silent partners in my bank account. Sarah and Tiffany are still paying off the interest on the loans their parents took out to keep them out of jail. They don't speak anymore. The bestie bond, it turns out, was only as strong as the balance in my savings account. Justice wasn't just getting my money back. It was watching their fake world crumble the second they had to pay for it themselves. What would you do if you caught your partner and their best friend plotting to drain your accounts? Have you ever had to deal with a bestie who had no boundaries? Let us know your story in the comments below. We read every single one.